All right, back with another power rankings tier list right here. If you're new here, the reason why there's 8 teams already on the board, 6 of those teams had a bye week. The other 2 play tonight, so that's why they are there. And if you're confused as to why they're in the area they are, you can search my video last week. I talk about that my reasoning there. So yeah, let's get into the list. A lot of I guess now that I'm thinking about it, I should talk about the Broncos because they played another game since I've last made one of these videos. I'm keeping them in feels like playoffs. Some defensive injuries, which is not ideal, but they were able to make enough defensive plays. Really good performance by Bo Nix. Made a couple mistakes, but again, continues to have a really good rookie season. So keeping them in this tier, but yeah, I'll talk about them there. The Titans. Listen, I created a tier called the Mac Jones Jaguars tier. You lose to the Mac Jones Jaguars, I think you belong in this tier now, right? It's disappointing because I thought early on, and there were times this season where we looked at the Titans and said, are they a team that could be I don't want to say like a real threat, but like a solid unit here. At the end of the day, I mean, Will Levis, I think it's probably time to move on. I'm not saying it's all his fault, but enough of it is that might be time to look somewhere else for the Tennessee Titans. The Miami Dolphins, who, I've been keeping them in a solid tier for a while. I think that's where I'm going to keep them as well. They essentially have to win out. They have a chance, and I do think that this offense played really well. The defense wasn't not its best day. Jets looked all right in that game, and the Jets, I don't think, are a great team. So that wasn't ideal. But again, when Tua, Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek Hill, and Jonnu Smith are all playing at a high level, you're going to win a lot of games. You just want to make sure you don't let it get that close again down the stretch. Next up, the New York Jets, the team that lost to the Dolphins. Yeah, I mean, I think a solid performance by them in this game. In fact, I think I'm willing to, I had put them in the bad tier. I'm willing to bump them up to Scrappy. I think that was, we saw Aaron Rodgers, I thought, look better. He had a kind of a low moment in the middle of the season. A good game, I would say. The offense with Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams kind of started to work. This is the team that maybe we thought they would be heading into the season, but unfortunately, it's way too late. They are already eliminated from the playoffs with still a month left. So, yeah, still not a good team, but I'll bump them up a tier. Why not? I've been too high on the Jets all season long. So, what's one more? The Browns are another team that I'm going to put in the Scrappy tier. Jameis Winston, again, catch him on his worst day, you're going to have some fun. Catch him on his best day, he's going to have some fun. This was not his best day against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and so much of this team kind of goes when Winston goes, hey, guys like Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku, turns out they're good players when you give them a quarterback. Who would have thought? Although I think, Judy's had quarterbacks over his career, but has a connection with Winston for sure. The Jaguars, well, I created a tier called the Mac Jones Jaguars. I probably still have to put them here. Hey, they got a victory. I still don't think this is a great team. I still don't think Mac Jones is very good. But yeah, I mean, hey, at least they won. That's fun for them. The Detroit Lions, who I at one point had in a tier of their own up here. I got rid of that tier. I'm still keeping them in Super Bowl contenders, of course. They beat a good Packers team. Did come down to the wire a little bit, but the fourth down decision-making of Dan Campbell kind of wins them that game. They don't win that game with more conservative fourth down coaching. Of course, there is the question of, some people have of could some of these calls go wrong in a big moment, cost them a playoff game? The bigger concern I have is could this defense cost them a playoff game with how bad, how injured it is at this point? It's possible. I mean, it's definitely possible. I think every team has its flaws, but that is the flaws right now, and it sucks because the Lions, on paper, were healthy. I mean, not on paper, we're healthy. On paper, we're good. They haven't been healthy. So because of that, still Super Bowl contenders, but don't feel quite as dominant, quite as great with them as I did. I still think they're favorites in the NFC, though. Probably favorites in the NFL. The Minnesota Vikings are next up, the team that, the final score was a blowout against Atlanta. It was not a blowout the entire time, right? I think Kirk Cousins was able to do some nice things. if you let Cousins sit in the pocket, he can do some nice things. Granted, no Stephon Gilmore. So once I'm a Tampa Bay fan, I was, I need Atlanta to lose. So I was rooting for Minnesota. Once I saw Gilmore was out, I got a little nervous. Like, he's a big part of that team. Still able to get the victory though without him, which is huge for the Vikings. And again, if Darnold plays this well, they could win the Super Bowl. Who knows? As of right now, still keeping them in the dark horse team tier. I think they're a really good team. I'm in on this Vikings team. I really am. I'd say I'm probably closer to putting them to Super Bowl contenders than feels like playoffs, but I still think this tier feels fair for now. The Buccaneers, who, get a big victory against the Raiders. They're leading the division, but they have not looked super strong these past couple weeks. Baker Mayfield has not had his best couple weeks. He is playing through an injury. Who knows how much that's a factor. I'll still keep him in the solid tier. It's where I had him last week, probably where I'm going to keep him. Unless they can pull off a big victory against the Chargers or something, this is probably where they're going to be for the rest of the season. Defense has looked better against admittedly bad competition. That's nice to see, but we'll see what happens. The 49ers, who all of a sudden look like the 49ers again against the Bears. Now, it's still just one game. We've seen them be inconsistent. I'll bump them up a tier. They were in scrappy. I'll bump them back up to solid. Again, they have to do this more consistently for me to bump them up higher. But again, this is what we expected. I think at one point they had outgained the Bears like 300 yards to 2, which was a crazy stat that I saw getting posted a lot. Absolutely, really good performance by them. And hey, Trent Williams back. That helps, I think. The Atlanta Falcons are next up, who, it's not good, right? It's just not a good situation what we're seeing right now with the Kirk Cousins. I didn't think he played poorly in this game. Well, again, you give him time in the pocket, he can make plays. Did throw multiple picks, though. The second one, the game was kind of out of reach, but not really. You score, you make it a one-score game, you have a chance, right? So, that's not good. The first one was a bad play. And his defense, some of the plays they were giving up downfield are horrible. So, I put them in scrappy last week. That's kind of where I feel like they're at right now. They have a couple get-right games. We'll see if they can get right in those games, get back up here and get back up in first in the NFC South. But for now, this is where I have them. Next up, the Chicago Bears, which, not good. I talked about the 49ers and how, good that was. Bears are the flip side. I've kept them in the scrappy tier. I'm still going to put them there. They've had their real down moments. They've also had some good games. They've been so inconsistent this season. It probably starts with the quarterback playing so inconsistent in Caleb Williams. Listen, defense getting torched by the 49ers, not what you love to see. Caleb Williams, obviously, we're all going to try to give our takes as to what does this mean for Caleb Williams moving forward. But as of right now, all we can really discuss is what he's done so far, which is showed some real flashes, also been very inconsistent. The Rams, who, I put in the solid tier last week, and I felt good about that. After a performance like that, you know what? We'll see if I end up regretting this, but I'm going to bump them all the way up to feels like playoffs. Now, doesn't mean they'll get in, right? Because they get in such a hole early on. It feels like playoffs, not you're getting into the playoffs. They feel like a playoff team. But, a huge win. The Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Sean McVay thing on offense. They're just able to play so well against the Buffalo Bills defense that we have seen. I think I brought this up on the podcast. Sometimes you see like these smart teams be able to kind of torch this Bills defense. Not always, but the Rams were able to do it. Really smart football. I love the fourth down decision making by Sean McVay late in the game as well. Big fan of this game. Defense still wasn't very good, though, so can't put them up any higher than that. But big win, important win for them. The Chargers, who, I think the other LA team, I think I'm going to continue put them as well in the feels like playoffs tier. Again, some very good stuff here by the Los Angeles Chargers, but at the end of the day, you did lose the game. I still feel like I would like them to have more receivers. I would. I think that they have players who can play. I just, not having Ladd McConkey hurt, of course. I still think they need a little bit more there. But still, they were a couple plays away, right? Forget that Mahomes play at the end. You're playing the Chiefs. Mahomes is going to make a play like that. Also, they missed I forget who it was down the field who could have had a touchdown. Would have been a big play. Would have put them up 7-3, I believe, at the time. So, there's still some really good stuff with this Chargers team. They're still a playoff team. A little disappointing, though, they weren't able to beat the Chiefs if you're a Chargers fan. But, again, who does beat the Chiefs? Only the Bills so far this year. The Raiders beat the Chiefs last year and nearly beat them this year. Not a good football team. They're currently, looking to be the first overall pick. I still think they're the worst team in the league, though. Like, they're competing. I'm going to put them in the bad tier. I think that there's a potential for them to get another win here. So I think they would beat either the Titans or the Jaguars. So I'll put them in bad, even though they're projected to have the first overall pick, which is not a bad place to be in. Last week, I dropped the Chiefs down a tier to Dark Horse just because I kind of felt like they deserved it, right? I mean, back-to-back, okay, wins, but really underwhelming wins. Barely beating the Panthers, and then really probably should have lost to the Raiders. I felt like it was fair to say, they need to play better. I thought they did play better. Against it still came down to the wire against the Chargers, but that's coming down to the wire against a good football team, and I thought the Chiefs were the better team in that one. So I'm willing to put them back up in Super Bowl contenders. And a couple things I just thought of with the Chiefs is we always say, why do they seemingly play better in the playoffs and in big moments than they do, otherwise? But like a big part of it is, I mean, you see Mahomes on that final drive, like all of a sudden he's running the ball, right? He doesn't want to do that. It's almost like the Chiefs have this massive asset, which is Mahomes' rushing ability, that they purposely don't use for the first 55 minutes of every regular season game because they know he needs to stay healthy. That's one of the ways the season can go wrong is him getting injured. So they just don't let him run until you get to those spots, and then he starts running, and now they look better, and he's able to make the play work. So if you're going to beat the Chiefs, kind of have to do it the way the Bills do it, which is get up 2 scores and keep it that way. Is maybe the way to do it. They're a really good team. I think they could win the Super Bowl. I think people are maybe sleeping on them a bit at this point, including myself. I put them into a tier below last week, and I think I was wrong there. I mean, the Saints, who I think I got to drop them down a tier, the way that they nearly lost to the Giants, Giants, we know what the Giants are. Giants are in the bottom tier. They're in the Mac Jones Jaguars tier. This is a bad football team with the Giants who, Drew Lock at one point started 0 for 8. He had an intentional grounding call on a 4th down. He had a play where it was 3rd and 6. He was rushing forward, had a clear first down, and just for whatever reason turned straight right and did not get the first down. Horrible stuff by the Giants. And for the Saints, how are you almost losing to this team? Like, that's not good by New Orleans. On Red Zone, Scott Hansen said that he's like, hey, when the Saints won, he's like, hey, Saints not technically out of it in the NFC South. I think they're in a tough spot. 3 games out and barely beating the Giants. Maybe I'll be wrong. Hey, they played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers later on in the season. It is the NFC South. Stranger things have happened. I think the Saints are in a rough spot there. The Eagles, who, I got to say, with all the defensive injuries, and I didn't touch on it with the Chiefs. Chiefs have some defensive injuries. We're getting racked up as well. Sometimes having depth is a real important aspect of football, and this is what I talk about in the previews all the time. Football is it's a sport of stars for sure, but it's also a sport of depth. You need guys who just are going to be there, and the Eagles have a ton of depth defensively. So they're Super Bowl contenders, and they might have they probably have the healthiest defense of Super Bowl contenders, and they're just really the one Super Bowl contenders team I look at, and I'm going to say, yeah, they're going to have starting caliber players at every position, unless they lose a linebacker probably, this postseason. Not everyone can say that, and that's a huge advantage. Next up is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I still feel like, I still think are really good. There's a point when I put them in Super Bowl contenders, and then they lost to the Browns, and I kind of had to say, okay, I'll knock them back down here. I don't think I can quite put them back up to Super Bowl contenders just yet, but I don't know. They're close. They really are. It doesn't feel like that crazy to put them there. I think that, again, you see how this offense works. Everyone's just totally buying in. Of course, being under defense is awesome. And again, in the AFC, where there are really, it feels like every team has a weakness. What is the Pittsburgh Steelers' weakness? I think the only thing you look at is say, well, they don't quite have the quarterback that the other top teams in the AFC have, which is fair. I think that, they are going to have to win a conference championship game with the worst quarterback. That's just the situation they're going to be in. But that being said, it's not like they have a bad quarterback, and they're playing good football. So, yeah, they're a team that could do some damage here for sure. The Packers are another team. I'm going to put them in a dark horse tier, nearly beating the Detroit Lions. I still think that there's some interesting stuff here. I still think that they need to get better at winning one-on-ones. Christian Watson was able to beat a guy against Detroit, but I think that there's going to be a time when I do have some concerns about I think the wide receivers, very good when they're in zone, very good at running setup routes, all that good stuff. But how many guys do they have that they can trust to just win one-on-ones? Packers fans disagree with me. They think they're fine there. We'll see who's right, but that's my biggest concern. A lot of really good stuff, though. Jordan Love continues to be a good second half of the year quarterback. But, hey, if you're going to be good in one half, that's the half I'd prefer. And the defense is really good for the Packers, even if they didn't play great. It's the Lions. No defense plays great against them, I guess, except for Tampa Bay for some weird reason. But, yeah, that's why I have them. The Panthers, who, I don't know. Can I just bump them up to the solid tier at this point? Like, they keep losing, so it's weird to say, but they keep nearly winning. Bryce Young looks legitimately good. This defense has looked all right. I mean, statistically, it's still the worst in football, but this past month, it's looked way better. I don't know. I'm buying into this Panthers team. I think that, we'll see what they do, but they can build for next year. What a season for the Panthers, coming off of a year when they were the worst team in football and didn't get their first overall pick, to now be in the situation they're at where everyone feels kind of optimistic about where they're at. Yeah, very cool for Panthers fans. The Cardinals, that was disappointing, right? I think I'll still keep them in the solid tier, but no doubt about it, this was a tough loss for Arizona. I mean, for one thing, just the stakes were so high with this team, right? I mean, now that they've lost, I think like the probability odds of them making the playoffs are like under 10%. Like, it's really difficult. Whereas had they won, they'd be leading the division. It's a brutal loss, and it's the Kyler Murray thing, right? I mean, first off, it's not all his fault. They rely on him so much. It's a very Kyler Murray dependent team, so they kind of have to go when he goes. But like, he can't make some of those mistakes. This is the game where you have to play better than that if you're going to make the playoffs. And really the three biggest games of the season, the last three games, is when he hasn't played his best 3 games of the season. So, unfortunate stuff there. But, yeah, I don't know if it's a scheme thing or what. I'd have to dive more into it. But that's tough. But, again, I still think the Cardinals are maybe a little bit ahead of schedule. A lot better than they were last year, but might need another year or two to fill out this roster. Next up, the Buffalo Bills, who, I don't know. I mean, I'm honestly conflicted on dropping them a tier or not, because the defense, which is now very injured, has another one of those games where, I mean, how often do we see it in the playoffs where this Sean McDermott defense, which is a very good scheme most games, where it's this zone coverage scheme, but you have a lot of match plays. Guys are, smart enough to cover up when someone is appearing to be open. But when you get a player like Stafford, who kind of just understands the rotation the defense is in, understands what you're going to do, he can just eat that alive. We've seen Mahomes do it last year in the playoffs. It happens. You just can't help but wonder, is it going to happen again? The flip side is Josh Allen is playing like the best quarterback in football. So I'm going to keep him in Super Bowl contenders just because I know Steelers fans will be upset. But, listen, a star quarterback can take you all the way. They just can. If you can have the best quarterback play in 4 playoff games, it's hard to lose those games. Not impossible. It happens, right? But usually the player with the best, team with the best quarterback play is the team that wins. Usually, I would say it's probably like 80% of the time in the playoffs, whoever has the quarterback who played the best in that game is the one who wins. So, I mean, you're essentially, if you're the Bills in the AFC, we'll see what happens with the Ravens, but the Ravens and the Chiefs are the 2 teams that could have a quarterback match what you're doing. Again, I don't think it's impossible the Steelers could beat them, but right now, it's one bad game. I'll give them kind of the benefit of the doubt because of what they've done this season, but have another game like that, probably got to drop them a tier, and I'm tempted to put the Steelers up. But for now, this is where I'm having them. The Seahawks, who I've been higher on the Seahawks than a lot of people this season, and I definitely feel vindicated. They definitely had some stupid losses this season, but some big wins. Unfortunately for them, then the Rams have this huge win, so the win doesn't quite feel as fun if you're a Seahawks fan, but still huge to essentially be in position where you don't have to worry about the Cardinals. They have to worry about the Rams now. Could come down to that final game of the season, and I think probably will actually at this point, but feels like this is a playoff caliber team. Again, just a really competent football team, right? They don't make a ton of mistakes offensively. There's some. Geno Smith will put the ball in harm's way at times, but makes a lot of really smart decisions. A lot of really good receivers on that team, and then the defense is playing way better. So, yeah, that is my tier list. Let me know in the comments below. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Always love hearing from you. And, of course, as always, thanks for watching.